Thank you. So, what do you want to know?
What's the answer? What's the answer?
What's the question? You know, the one asking the question is the one telling the story. So.
Tell us why it's not hopeless.
Oh,
Matthew had a
what do you mean it's not? Seriously?
Seriously.
You think it's hopeless?
Sure.
It has many, it appears that way very frequently in our news media and in reading Haaretz is not a help.
Yeah, well, you should start reading your own news, my dear.
It's not a
It
help
will give
either.
you a good sense of proportion. A kiddush so not.
No, I understand. I have enough to spare to go around.
So, do you think there's no hope for the States?
I'm old enough so that I hope I die after Trump is no longer the president. But the idea of his being the last thing I've seen is depressing.
I think Matthew had a third question.
I have a kind of a two-part question.
No, I just want to relate to that. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I do want to relate to this
Okay.
seriously because I think to a large extent, you as Americans, that is, and as progressive Americans, of course, obviously, are now starting to experience what we've been living with for over 20 years now, what I call the Netanyahu era. And it's very specifically Netanyahu. It's not generally right wing and settlers. But it's the ability of a person, and that is very similar to what the president-elect in America's been doing and is doing. Is what Netanyahu is successfully doing here for a very long time already, and that is changing. Using, or I would say abusing the system for his own personal benefit at the expense of what we believe in, at the expense of the common good, at the expense of our future, etc. But the pendulum always comes back. Exactly as this election, and it's clear to see, I think once again in your country it's more clear to see how it's a huge backlash. I see a lot of talk about the white lash and the blue collar lash, and there is no talk, but it's a overwhelming patriarchic backlash. By the way, the oppression or the denial of the chauvinist, feminist, the patriarchic part that has in this election is unbelievable. The way it's being denied in America still today is just really overwhelming, but we can discuss that if you wish later. Anyway, so I think we are we are already in a better situation because you're just starting what we're already hopefully finishing soon. Because, no, seriously, because I think at some point, there's a limit to how much you can abuse people to that extent, and it's going to change, because the Netanyahu era will end. I don't know how shortly this will happen, but it will, and then it'll be altered completely, and there will be an agreement with the Palestinians. Hopefully, it'll be as much. The sooner it happens, it will be an agreement that both sides were prominent in choosing how it will look like and not imposed somehow. But there will be an agreement, and it's a binary thing, because the potential in this agreement, not only with the Palestinians, but with the region and so many states in the region who have even more interest in such a reorganization of the relationship in the region. Their interest to have it today is bigger than it ever was before, because of the changing reality with Muslim, or I would say radical Muslim terror. So as I said, it's bigger than ever, and so there's so much potential there that once we do the switch, it's really turning the other way around. So it's not only not lost, but rather underway to becoming really great.
Okay.
No, seriously, I believe in
I-
this.
I-
Otherwise, I would not have been here.
I really honor your voice and am very grateful for it.
My question for you, actually, and you already began to touch upon it, is related to gender. Right? And we met with Moshe Raz, who's the first speaker, and he said that he thinks that the majority of men are more men or leftists than women in Israel. And I was wondering what you thought of that response, and also what the role of women in politics in Israel.
Does he have such data? Or is it like a gut feeling or something?
79% of statistics are made up on the spot.
It changed.
Before it was less.
She made my point.
He's making up more.
But someone did mention
Self-illustrating.
that 58% of women voted.
And 63% of men.
Yeah,
What, to
Right.
I can't. I think. Yeah,
To the right.
to the right.
more men?
He
vote?
said men are more
No,
dominant
women.
than women.
Of the women voted for
For
right
wing
center
parties.
parties.
And he claimed that the more people serve in the army, the more dovish they become. And I guess the idea that more men being in combat or whatever
They serve
would be,
longer.
and serve longer would become more dovish, and the women were not. But I didn't make a note of any numbers.
I thought he said 58%.
If my memory does not serve me really bad, then I think there's a project that's called Shavot, is headed by Nomi Chazan, whom you probably
Yeah.
very well know. So Nomi Chazan and Professor Hannah Herzog, both of them in the institution called Van Leer, I think their research points to a very different direction, and that is that women do tend to vote more to the left, but so it's worth checking. I don't want to challenge Mosse's numbers without the but I don't think it's a big difference either way, by the way. So and it's a very, very interesting claim that the more people are in the army, they become more dovish. It's very interesting because I met with Australian lawmakers yesterday, and they asked me, how is it that, how does the mandatory draft live with a democracy? So it's, according to what you just described, mandatory draft is the way to democracy, yeah, so. And anyways, and what I told them too is that definitely mandatory draft is not the obstacle to democracy, and Israel proves that strongly. So what is the role of women? First of all, unfortunately, not all women are feminists. So the way I phrase it is, what is the role of feminists? And my take on it is that we need to work as hard as we possibly can to achieve peace and equality, which in my mind go together. And as we know, they go together, because when there is no peace, there is less equality, and as the less equality there is, the easier it is to provoke war and to achieve peace. So it kind of they feed each other. Thing is that there's this illusion that we already live in, since we have in America I think we have more, also not. We have, in principle, formal equality, even though it's not totally so, because it is still a flawed, even the formal equality is flawed, either in the abortion issue or in Israel where we have no civil marriage. But if you look at the formal equality, then if you look at the UN report on women from 2015, then you'll see that the assets and money in the world, the gender split, do you know what it is? Do you have any idea how much money and assets are in the hands of men and how much is in the hands of women? Can you guess?
I'll guess. 75% of the wealth is in men's hands.
Anyone wants to try a worse
More than
number?
that. It's gotta be more
Is
than
it worse than that?
How much would you give it?
90?
99?
Really?
Not
Really?
99?
99, 1. Wow. So, wow. This is the UN report on women. And by the way, it's the same as it
Is it
was in
in
2010. No,
Oh,
in the
worldwide.
world,
Okay.
worldwide.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Worldwide. Okay, so maybe in the West it's 97.3. That we balance the, but, so, and we don't bear that in mind on a daily basis. And we don't remember on a daily basis, I mean, most of us don't, even though we are exercising it, but we don't think of it that way. That the economy, for instance, okay, an institution that is supposedly objective and scientific to an extent, the economy does not include women's work. Household works and child upbringing is something that, according to the International Labor Organization, had those works been calculated in the national calculations, then the world, what do you call the talag?
Gross national product?
Yes, thank you so much. Would have been like thousands of trillions more than it is today. Think of the institution of marriage, even in places where actually any other democracy other than Israel, where you do have civil marriage. Think of this contract, this gender-based contract, which is ultimately designed to get men legal presumption over children and exclusivity over women's bodies for a long list of purposes. So we still, when we talk about women's role, we still are in a huge challenge to even get to the same opening point from which men are operating. This is why we are still a minority in politics, and we are very much a minority in politics. And in Israel, we are already 25% of parliament, but only, I don't know, 12 or something percent in the government. In America, you have 20% women in Congress, and it has not improved this last elections, which is worth thinking about. I know that I have legislation which will not pass in this with this government, but it's legislation that demands as a threshold condition to every party that wants to run for the Knesset to have at least 40% representation for every sex in every 5. You know, our system is different. We have lists of you vote for a party, not for a representative. So our challenge and our role is to work towards changing the mere systems which we see as forces of nature. We think of the state, the economy, the justice system, the health system, all of these, we think of them as the sun and like the sunset and the rain and the summer and whatever. And they are not. They're institutions phrased through laws solely by men, usually white men, usually men with money, with capital, to organize the inner needs of men. If you think of the American Declaration of Independence, it says all men are created equal and free, and it meant all white men with property are equal and free. And thereby, we phrase the Constitution, which sets the terms in which we know what is allowed and what is not allowed, what's good, what's bad, and how do we transfer between ourselves all kinds of assets and commodities, which part of were women, children, men of other colors, etc. Now we've been let into the game about 100 years ago. It took us, let's say, 30, 40 years to actually get into the game and have access to the law. not only as legislators, but also as interpreters, judges, lawyers, whatever, and access to money and to property. And ever since then, we've been carving little changes with little spoons and putting little tlaim, what is the word for tlaim? Patches, stitches, patches, that was my meaning, thank you. But it's patches on a system that is designed against us, which is no wonder why ever since women have received the vote, since we have the right to vote and to be elected, the gaps between the, regular woman and the wealthiest men, the gaps have just grown like, I don't know how many million times. We have to change the system. We have to reimagine the world as a world that is not patriarchic, part of which means that there are less wars in it, and whatever conflicts are, they are dealt with differently than they are dealt with today. And one of the things that I'm heavily, and this is something that I deal with today, especially more, like many of my hours are dedicated to this, and I'll give you this small example. It's a legislation that I was privileged to have succeeded passing in the previous Knesset, and it's now implemented. And it changes the way divorce in Israel are being handled. It means that when you want to get a divorce, you don't go to the court or to the rabbinic court. Doesn't matter. I can't stop this race of authorities, like we call it, but doesn't matter. You don't go to the court, either one, but rather you go to what we call an aid unit. It's run by mainly social workers who give you all of the information you need about non-adversary ways to deal with your conflict. That is either mediation or collaborative divorce or therapy or some kind of consultant. And the idea is to get people to conduct whatever conflict they have outside of court, not fight over it, but try to agree on whatever they can agree, to realize that they have so much more to gain from fighting, that it's not a zero-sum game, and that the more they fight, the more it becomes a zero-sum game, whereas if they go to a course which is consensual, they have so much more to gain for everyone. So in my feminist world, this is my role, to take conflicts out of this war zone, this constant war zone that we are in, because it's always a zero-sum game, which is the way our justice system is built. There's always someone who wins and someone who loses, and someone who's right and someone who's wrong, where life is not like that. Life is like, it's a long scale, and you have transitional justice, and you have generational justice, and you have, and once again, tzedek me'acheh, how would you say?
Binding, something,
No, not binding.
it's not.
Me'acheh.
Healing.
Healing,
So,
something like
yeah.
healing justice, something that we must do, for
Restorative
instance.
justice.
Restorative justice.
Yes.
Restorative justice, all of these and more. And I always give this, for instance, this example of rape. So many women who've been raped by their fathers, their brothers, they don't necessarily want to see them in jail. They want to get the recognition of the wrong that was done to them. And I, as a society, I want to have this person not only repent, but also I want to see him not
Rehabilitated.
repeating. Sorry?
Rehabilitated.
Rehabilitated, yes, thank you, and not repeating and not raping now his grandchildren after having raped his children. So I also think about not a correction, it's like a correction facilitation. I don't think of correction the way it's being thought of now. I don't think, because our jail system is so much more, it's very vindictive, where it should be much more rehabilitating and really corrective in a very deep sense. So this was a long, very partial answer to your question. I'm sorry if it was too long, but.
Rav, I'm sure you've been asked this many, many times. Can you comment on
the perception or the fact that labor has moved toward the center. And you've been asked this.
Oh, yes, no, it's okay, you know, you're not.
And an addendum to that it has moved in its position on occupation and settlements.
I'm just gonna say it has to be the last question, because
Yes.
I get nervous when that has to go, so.
The short answer is no, it has not. We are thankfully 24 mandates, so we are supposed to have a variety of, a variety of positions. We are supposed to have people who are more dovish and more hawkish, and it's always been like that. You would remember that it's always been like that in labor. And if anything, the leftist, more progressive part of the party has become more radical, not the hawkish part. But unfortunately, the center-left camp in Israel in general, it's true also for labor, but it's true for the camp in general, is acting like a classic victim of violence that's been inflicted on us for over 20 years now. We've totally taken in the guilt. We are certain that it's our fault. We blame each other for the things that the right is blaming us for constantly. And there's self-cannibalism and self-blaming, and there's fractionization, a horrible fractionization. So instead of fighting the right, we're fighting each other, blaming. Meretz would blame us that we're too much to the right. We would blame them that they're too. And of course, within the party, we have this, and the organization, the civil society organizations, unfortunately, are so busy blaming us instead of that we are not a good enough opposition and do not conduct the fight well enough, instead of just waging whatever war they think should be waged on the right wing and the government and whoever. They're fighting us. This is, by the way, one of the big dangers that you guys are facing now in America. There's a very good chance that this will happen in the Democratic camp in America now. Because I see what, how Catherine McKinnon says that men see, in terms, when they talk about morality, they see things that are good for them as good and things that are bad for them as bad. And this is, you can see Trump doing this exactly. News that are good for him and bad for others are real news. News that are bad for him and good for others are fake news. It's like amazing to see, but it works. And here it's been working for a long time now. And unfortunately, instead of sticking to what we believe in, we've been believing in the same things all the time. We have really lost our self-confidence as a camp, not as a party. We are all part of this, and we need to rebuild this confidence. This is the biggest drama, by the way.
Okay.
Once we do that, then...
That's our struggle for now.
No, seriously.
No, I take it utterly seriously. Will you be in J Street next month?
I don't know. Will I?
No.
I won't? No.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, sorry.
We could use you.
Thank you.
Next time. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anytime.